Part 3. Computation of period of limitation. Section 12 to 24. The fraud contemplated by Section 17 of the Limitation Act 1963 is that of the defendant. The period during which the proceeding stand stay by an injunction or order is excluded under Section 15 of the Limitation Act 1963. In computing the period of limitation for an appeal, the day on which the judgment pronounced and the time requisite for obtaining the copy of decree shall be excluded. Effect of the date on or before the acquittal of the right to sue extend to the right to sue. After the institution of the suit, a new defendant is substituted. The suit is deemed to have been instituted as regard him when he was made a party. Acknowledgement after the period of limitation is of no effect. Under Section 19 of Limitation Act 1963, the part payment extends the period of limitation from the date of the waiting evidencing payment. Section 13 of the Limitation Act 1963 applies in the case of a pauper. Under Section 14 of the Limitation Act 1963, the defect of jurisdiction must relate to territorial jurisdiction, pecuniary jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction. Section 15 of the Limitation Act 1963 does not apply to appeals. Section 22 of the Limitation Act 1963 is not applicable in case of a suit for damages for wrongful detention of the good. If a pronote is executed on 5th June 1945, last date for filing the suit will be 6th July 1948. Which one of the following is not an essential requisite of the valid acknowledgement? It need not be in writing. In a suit filed by plaintiff, the defendant in his written statement has taken an objection of non-impediment of a necessary party. Despite such objection of plaintiff, continue the suit and suit finally was decreed. At the first appellate stage, the plaintiff withdraw the suit with the liberty to file a fresh one on the same clause of the action and subsequently filed a fresh suit. The period spent by the plaintiff in the earlier suit was Section 14 of the Limitation Act is liable to be excluded on the ground that the plaintiff was prosecuting the earlier suit with due diligence and in good faith. On acknowledgement, phase period of limitation starts from the date of the signing of the acknowledgement. Acknowledgement made by the person other than the person under the liability is good if the person making it is an agent of the person under liability. Which one of the following shall continue counted for computation of period of limitation? Time taken to obtain copy of judgment, order, award. A. Borrow a sum of money from B. Last date for filing the suit fall on Sunday. On Monday, the next day, A give a written acknowledgement to B. In this case, Section 18 of the Limitation Act 1963 gives us circumstances. What is the effect on limitation to institute a suit? In case where statutory notice is required by law to issue before institution of a suit, the prescribed period of the notice is excluded. What is the effect of acknowledgement of debt in writing by the defendant after the prescribed period of the limitation? No effect. In which one of the following circumstances the plaintiff shall not get the benefit as provided under Section 14 of the Limitation Act? Where the another civil proceeding is disposed and after adjudication on the merit by the competent court. Expression time requisite under Section 12(2) of the Limitation Act means actually time consumed. In which one of the following cases the nature, scope and object of acknowledgement within the meaning of Section 18 of the Limitation Act 1963 was relevant before the apex court? Shahpur Freedom Majda versus Durga Prasad Chamaria. Prabhakaran versus M. Ajhagiri Pillai. J.C. Budhieja versus Chairman Orissa Mining Corporation Limited. Under the provision of subsection 2 of Section 18 of the Limitation Act, oral evidence of the date of acknowledgement is permissible if the acknowledgement is undated. The provision of Section 14 of the Limitation Act are applicable to only if on the opening day plaint is presented before the proper court. Acknowledgement made after the period of limitation is of no effect. Provision contained in Section 16 is not applicable to suit to enforce right of presumption, suit for possession of immovable property of the hereditary office. In computation period of limitation for an appeal, a review or revision, the time requisite for obtaining a copy of the decree or order appealed against shall be excluded under Section 12, subclause 2. Section 17 of the Limitation Act takes within its ambit concealment fraud mistake. Section 17 of the Limitation Act does not take within its ambit an appeal. Which one of the following amount presented by civil proceeding with due diligence and in good faith within the meaning of Section 14 of the Limitation Act? Neither A nor B. In computing the period of limitation for any suit appeal application, the day from which such appeal is to be reckoned shall be excluded. While computing period of limitation of the suit, time is spent in another similar proceeding of the court having no jurisdiction can be excluded if the plaintiff had acted in good faith with due diligence. A suit can be said to be limitation ever after the period prescribed if the defendant acknowledged the liability of the plaintiff right before expiration of the period of limitation. When a new defendant is added in suit, the suit shall be deemed to have been instituted against him from the date of its addition. Under Limitation Act 1963, in computing period of limitation for any suit, the day from which such period is to be reckoned shall be excluded. Under Section 21 of the Limitation Act 1963, when the suit shall be deemed to have been instituted as against the newly impleaded defendant, the date on which he was impleaded. Section 21. Effect of substituting or adding a new plaintiff or defendant of Limitation Act 1963. does not apply in the case of which one of the following? Transportation of parties. Which one of the following is correct with regard to acknowledgement of liability under Section 18 of Limitation Act 1963? Acknowledgement can be made to a person other than a person entitled to the property. Under Section 18 of the Limitation Act 1963, face period of limitation has been computed from the day of signing of the acknowledgement. In computing the period of limitation, the period which may exclude included the time during which any person has been prosecuting with due diligence another prosecution on the same fact in good faith and in court without jurisdiction. Period for which the prosecution in respect of such offence has stay by the injunction or order. Computation of the limitation time for date used in instrument will calculate according to the calendar, Georgian calendar, in which section of the Limitation Act effect of date before accrual of right to sue provided under Section 16. In order to attract the applicability of the Section 14 of Limitation Act, which condition is not required to be satisfied. Earlier proceeding and the later proceeding may be based on different matter in issue. Which section of the Limitation Act prescribed that in computing the period of limitation for any suit, appeal, application for leave, revision for review of a judgment, the day on which the judgment complained was pronounced and the time requisite for obtaining copy of the decree, sentence or order appealed from or sought to be revised or renewed shall be excluded. Section 12. Exclusion of time of proceeding bona fide in the court without jurisdiction is stipulated in Section 14. In computing the period of limitation for application to set aside an award, time requisite for obtaining the copy of the award shall be excluded in Section 12, Subclause 4. Section 18 of Limitation Act deals with effect of acknowledgement in writing. Statement A. In computing period limitation for any appeal, the day from which the period is to be reckoned shall be included. In computing the period of limitation for an appeal, the day on which the judgment complained of was pronounced and the time requisite for obtaining the copy of the decree shall be excluded. This one is right. Acknowledgement after the expiration of the period of limitation under Indian Limitation Act 1963 for a suit or application is of no effect. In computing the period of limitation for an appeal, the time required to take the copy of the decree of judgment is excluded if an application has to be made. In computing the period of limitation for any suit, the day from which the period is to be reckoned shall be excluded. Section 7 of Limitation Act does not apply to none of the above. Under Section 15 of the Limitation Act, which one of the following is not excluded in computing the limitation period? None of the above. Under the Limitation Act 1963, in computing the period of limitation for any suit appeal application, the day from which such period is to be reckoned shall be excluded. In computing the period of limitation for any suit, the time during which plaintiff has been prosecuting with due diligence another civil proceeding, whether in court of first instance or of appeal or revision, against defendant shall be excluded, where proceeding related to the same matter in issue and is prosecuted in good faith in court which from the defect of the jurisdiction is unable to the entertain it. The exclusion of such period has to be laid down under Section 14 of the Limitation Act 1963. Under Limitation Act, which one of the following shall not counted for computation of period of limitation? Time taken by the advocate to prepare the memorandum of appeal. A fresh period of limitation shall computed from the time when the acknowledgement was signed before the expiration of the period prescribed. Before expiry of the period of limitation, A has acknowledged in writing the amount due as a debt, but B has promised to pay. What is the effect of such acknowledgement? Fresh period of limitation will start from the date on which acknowledgement. Date of such an acknowledgement. Under which section of Limitation Act, time requisite for obtaining a copy of the decree or order appealed shall be excluded in computing the period of limitation for appeal, review or revision. Section 12, subclause 2. Section 22 of Limitation Act 1963 refer to which one of the following cases: continuing breach of contract. The plaintiff is entitled to get benefit of Section 14 of Limitation Act is provided in. The plaintiff must be prosecuting his suit with due diligence and in good faith. Time requisite under Section 12, Section 2 of the Limitation Act means actual time taken. Under Section 21 of Limitation Act, suit is deemed to have been instituted in case of new plaintiff impleaded added on the date on which the new plaintiff is impleaded. Under Section 19 of Limitation Act, the part payment of the debt interested has to be within the period prescribed for repayment. What will be the legal position in respect of suit instituted after 2 days of the prescribed period of limitation? If the plaintiff satisfies the court that he was misled by a judgment of the High Court in computing the period, the court may try the suit after condoning delay. The following would not be excluded while computing the period of limitation for any suit: appeal, application of Section 12, day from which such period of limitation to be reckoned. Which provision of the Act provide for exclusion of time proceeding bona fide in court without jurisdiction? Section 14. While computing the period of limitation, the day from which such period is reckoned shall be excluded. For exclusion of time proceeding bona fide in court without jurisdiction, the time during which the former civil proceeding was pending, the day on which the proceeding was instituted, and the day on which ended shall both counted. A plaintiff or an applicant resisting an appeal shall be deemed to be prosecuting a proceeding. Misjoinder of a party or cause of action shall deemed to be cause of like nature with defect jurisdiction. In computing the period of limitation for any suit, time during which defendant has been absent from India, it shall be excluded. For a fresh period of limitation of being from the time of acknowledgement of the liability under Section 18 of the Limitation Act, it is necessary that acknowledgement must be in writing, made before expiration of the period prescribed, signed by the party against whom right is claimed. It is not necessary that an acknowledgement with Section 18 of Limitation Act must contain a promise to pay or should amount to the promise to pay. The statement is true. Section 12 to 15 of the Limitation Act provided for exclusion of time in computing the period of limitation prescribed by the law. Which of the following fall inside the ambit of exclusion? Day on which the judgment order award is pronounced, time during which stay injunction operated, time during which defendant has been out of India. As per Section 19 of Limitation Act, if any payment is made on account of date before the expiration of the period prescribed by the person liable to pay the debt or by his agent duly authorized in that behalf of fresh period, the limitation start running from when the payment was made.